Thank you. Labour opposes this bill. This bill that goes to indexation, goes to income stream review processes, the ordinary wait periods and family tax benefits is simply another example of this government being uncaring, this government having no understanding for what is important to ordinary families in this country, and this government being completely out of touch with the battles that normal people have day in, day out to ensure that they can put food on the table and put clothes on their kids to send them off to school. This is a mean-spirited government. This is a government who don't care about the poor and disadvantaged in this country. This is a government who would give $50 billion in tax cuts to big business and at the same time support penalty rate cuts for 700,000 of the poorest workers in this country. And Senator Brandis came in this morning. Nobody had seen the bill. The bill had not been presented. There had been no discussions about the bill. A secret deal done. And in they come to change the hours with no one knowing what was in the bill. The first I saw of the bill was about 10 minutes ago when I was handed the explanatory memorandum. This is the lack of process, the contempt that this government has, not only for due process, but more importantly, for families that are battling day in, day out to eke a living out in a time when living standards are declining, wages are being frozen and prices are going up. And yet this mob, they don't care. They don't care. And we had Senator Brandis saying this is an orderly dispatch of business. Nobody puts this government and orderly in the same sentence. They are anything but orderly. They have got no plan. They have got no strategy. They have got no economic credibility. Their only approach, and that's all it is, an ideological approach, is to attack the poorest in this country. Whether it's through the social security system, or whether it's through the penalty rate system, whether it's through the industrial relations system, all they want to do is attack ordinary families in this country. And the most chilling aspect of the speeches we heard this morning was Senator Cormann. Remember Senator Cormann, after the 2014 budget that he was a key player in? Remember that budget that hammered pensioners, hammered welfare recipients? That terrible budget that they've had to crab walk back day in, day out since it was introduced? You know, the budget that gave us lifters and leaners. If you were in a tough situation as an ordinary family and you required some welfare support, you were a leaner. But if you were former Treasurer Joe Hawkey and you have to leave because you were so disgraced in terms of your budget, you end up, you're not a leaner, you're a lifter. So you get lifted off to Washington to get about $400,000 plus a year in salary, plus a $150,000 plus pension. And this guy had the cheek to call ordinary families leaners. Well, I know who's leaning, and it was the economic team of the coalition. And Senator Cormann and Treasurer Hawkey, remember the picture? Sitting there with a big Havana cigar, celebrating cutting key aspects of workers' security, social security. The big Havana cigar probably cost more than the $38 a day that someone on New Start has to survive on. They were so happy, so proud, that they cracked out the Havana cigars to celebrate that 2014-15 budget. But what Senator Cormann said, the chilling part in what he said today, is there is more work to be done. So this is not the end of the attacks on poor people in this country. More work to be done. Now, I'm not sure, as part of the secret deal with One Nation, Nick Xenophon, Senator Xenophon, Senator Hinch, Senator Leonholm, I'm not sure, as part of that secret deal, whether Senator Cormann told them what more work has to be done, what more cuts we can expect in the future, what more attacks on ordinary families are sitting behind this bill. Well, I can tell you, go back to the 2014-15 budget and look at the aspects of that. A tax on pensioners, changes to the indexation of pensioners, which would have left them $80 a week worse off over a 10-year period. That was how you crack out the Havana, attacking pensioners. Making young people with no capacity to find a job in areas where there's up to over 20% youth unemployment, telling them they've got to live with absolutely no income support for 6 months. What kind of mob are this sitting over there? This is what they really wanted to do. And by Senator Cormann saying there is more work to be done, you can bet that all the nasties are waiting to come back in. And what they'll do, they'll cuddle up to One Nation, to to Senator Xenophon, to Senator Hinch, and they will work away to try and get the worst aspects of their attacks on working people implemented. Make no bones about it. One Nation, Senator Xenophon, Senator Hinch, and Senator Leonholm are simply delivering for the Liberal and National parties. They are delivering all the worst aspects of their budget approach. And how dare Senator Xenophon try and stand up and be the pragmatic, person of the people. Senator Xenophon has done more deals in here in this term of government than I think any other crossbencher. He makes the Democrats look like amateurs. This guy will always do the deal and will always get this government out of trouble and put poor people in trouble. That's what Nick Xenophon's about. That's what Senator Xenophon's modus operandi is. I have never seen Senator Xenophon really act in the interests of working people. During the debates on industrial relations legislation, where did Senator Xenophon go? Straight to the Liberal Party. A few amendments here and there to justify his utter capitulation to the protections for working people. And what about One Nation? Senator Hanson out there telling everybody that she listens to the people, that she is there for the people. Well, I have not seen her do one thing in this Senate that promotes decency, promotes a decent social approach on any aspect of any bill that's come through this Parliament. She is, that is Senator Hanson, She is a reliable vote for the Liberals and Nationals. She will deliver the cuts to welfare. She will deliver the attacks on penalty rates. She will deliver an uncaring attitude to the poor in this nation. Senator Hanson is a fraud. Senator Xenophon is a fraud. If they were not frauds, they would actually be in there battling to support ordinary Australians against the attacks that this coalition government mount on ordinary Australians day in, day out. Whether it's welfare, whether it's industrial relations, or whether it's penalty rates, the frauds of the Xenophon team, the frauds in One Nation, are over there cuddling up to the Liberal National Party and delivering really bad outcomes for ordinary Australians in this country. Now, in the bill, we've got the freeze on indexation. Now, what that really means is a cut. When you freeze indexation, you actually cut back. So there's cuts. And we heard, the Attorney General, Senator Brandis, who's quite diverted at the moment, packing his bags, looking for a job anywhere else but in the Senate. His colleagues don't want him here. Big business don't want him here. They're prepared to send him overseas. And he's talking about a $6.8 billion saving. Well, remember, that $6.8 billion is $6.8 billion that comes out of support for the poorest people in this country. It's an absolute outrage. It's the poor people in this country that are being belted up. So the more work that's got to be done, that Senator Cormann has indicated, in my view, means that they will revisit that terrible 2014-15 budget, and they'll continue to work to deliver all of the attacks on poor people in this country that budget contained. Now, how, through you, Chair, how the National Party can simply be capitulating to these attacks when in many of their seats, pensioners, welfare recipients, unemployed young people, they're the ones that are going to get hammered. And in many of the National Party seats, the workers that are going to be hit hardest with cuts on penalty rates are in National Party seats. For instance, in Page, the second biggest industry in Page, employing nearly 8,000 local workers, is food and hospitality. Retail, 8,000 workers. 12,200 are in retail, food and accommodation, 7,700 are in retail, and 4,498 in food and hospitality. Now, have you heard the local member from Page actually saying, don't cut the penalty rates of tens of thousands of workers in regional Australia? Not a word. Not a word. The National Party, the sycophants that they are, talk big when they get out in the bush and are lambs when they come here, simply capitulating to the Liberal Party on all these attacks that attack ordinary families and ordinary workers in their seats. Gilmore, not National but Liberal, the seat of Gilmore, nearly 12,000 workers in Gilmore affected. Nearly 7,000 in retail, the second biggest employer in Gilmore. Over 5,000 workers in other areas that are affected by penalty rate cuts. And what did the local member, Ms Anne Sudmala, say about it? She said it was a gift. She said it's not cutting wages, it's opening the door for more hours of employment. And in a regional area like Gilmore, with almost double the national youth unemployment, that's a gift. That's a gift for our young people to get a foot in the door of employment. That is the stupidity of the coalition, that by cutting the wages of the poorest paid workers in our country on a base annual salary of $35,000, who depend on their penalty rates at the weekend to actually lift the standard of living to a reasonable standard of living, not even a good one, but just a reasonable standard of living, they get $4,000 cut off them because penalty rates go. And not a word from rural and regional MPs in the coalition. Not one word, except to defend the cuts in penalty rates, because they have got a pathological opposition to workers getting access to penalty rates, workers getting access to decent collective bargaining, workers getting access to decent health and safety on the job through access to their unions. They have got a pathological hatred for the trade union movement, and if the trade union movement cannot deliver on wages and conditions in this country, what you should understand is that minimum rates will never rise. And we will end up like the US, with no decent welfare system, no decent underpinning for rates of pay and conditions. Retail workers having to depend on tips to bring home a decent wage. That's the type of society that this mob want. And that's the type of society that they are delivering day in, day out, supported by Pauline Hanson's One Nation, supported by Nick Xenophon and his team, supported by Darren Hinch. I mean, Darren Hinch, give us a break. This is the guy that used to get out and go, shame, shame, shame. Well, shame, shame, shame on Darren Hinch, because he has never voted for working people on one decent issue in this Parliament since he's been here. He is an absolute captive of the coalition. Absolute captive. Now, this is a government in absolute chaos and crisis. We've got a Prime Minister who does not have the confidence of his party. Doesn't have the confidence of the party. He doesn't have the confidence of the nation. He promised so much and has delivered so little. Prime Minister Turnbull is the biggest disappointment that anyone has ever seen as a Prime Minister in this country. He has capitulated to the right wing of the Liberal Party. Tony Abbott is still calling the shots. Prime Minister Turnbull is the weakest jelly-backed Prime Minister ever. He cannot concentrate on any economic way forward. What does he do? He wants a capital gains tax. How long did that last? A few weeks. Then he wants to give powers back to the states. I think that lasted 48 hours. Now he's got this idea that they'll let people access the superannuation to buy a house. That will simply drive house prices up and will mean that workers will have no decent retirement. The guy is a fraud. The guy is hopeless. The Prime Minister of this country has got no standing. And this bill is an absolute disgusting attack on the poorest people in this country. And the National Party sit there, the sycophants that they are, the weak people that they are, the unhelpful people for their own electorate that they are, and give in every time. The National Party are a disgrace. They should be on this side opposing these cuts to their electorates.